My name's Alan Johnson, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about how Jesus Christ has changed my life. About a year ago, I was in a pretty bad way. I was financially struggling. I was looking bankruptcy in the face. My home was being foreclosed on. And I was about to lose my truck because I couldn't make the payment. Because of all the stress and everything over the finances and raising 5 teenagers and everyday life, it just got to be a little overwhelming. The communication between me and my family was breaking down, and we were losing respect for one another at a rapid pace. I was about to lose the love of my life. My wife Katie and I were looking at divorce. Things were so overwhelming that I didn't see a way to stop the downward spiral. And I decided that the only way I could was to take my own life. A lot of things were going through my head at the time, and I wasn't sure how to change it. I'd planned it out, when and where. I'd planned on going to the lake. And that day, I thought I was prepared. To get to the lake from my house, I have to pass the local cigar shop. And I've been in there a few times, but I didn't really know anybody. But I figured, what did I have to lose, right? So I stopped in to have one last cigar before I left. And there was a man up front that seen I was upset. And he asked me if there was anything he could do. And I told him, no, I'm just dealing with some life problems. I'm going to take care of it. He said, there's a man in the back named Carl. He's good with life problems, and he's good at listening. You should talk to him. I said, I may do that. And he wished me the best, and he left. I sat there for a few minutes by myself, figuring I didn't have anything to lose. So I went back and asked Carl if he would talk to me for a few minutes. We stepped into the owner's office, and for the next hour, I broke down and told this man everything that I was going through up to that day and what I had planned. When I was done, he assured me that that wasn't going to change or fix anything, but it would do 2 things. First, it would keep me from getting into heaven. And second, it would destroy the hearts of the ones that love me here. At the time, I wasn't really feeling much love, and I told him that. He told me that he loved me and that it would hurt him. That was pretty awkward for me. But what was more awkward was that in my heart I felt he was being honest. Needless to say, at the end of the conversation, I found out he was a preacher. And he asked if he could pray for me. And we bowed our heads and closed our eyes and we prayed. And that day I didn't make it to the lake. Instead, I went home and tried to sort it out in my head. Why or how could this man that didn't know me or know anything about me actually love me? A few days later, I was suffering with a severe toothache, and Carl seen me. And knowing my position, that I had no money and no insurance, he offered to help me. He said his wife works for a dentist office and they would do what they could. I wasn't really much for handouts and people helping me, so I turned it down. And a few days later, it got to be even worse, and it was almost so bad I couldn't eat. So I swallowed my pride and I asked for help. And a few days later, I found myself in the dentist office, still going through the same things I was going through, still upset. After they were done with me that day, I was at the counter talking to Shelly, and she was going over everything that they had done and what they had helped me with and what still needed to be done and what they would help me with on that. And I was taken back by it. I didn't know how to respond to it. So I broke down and I left. On the way home, Shelly called me and asked me if I was okay. And I explained to her, I'm not used to people helping me, and I don't understand why y'all are doing this for me. And Shelly told me it was because Jesus loved me, and they loved me. And I thought, wow, that's huge. For the next couple weeks, I watched this family and realized that it wasn't just me they were helping. That they did this for everyone that they came in contact with that needed something in their lives. Over the weeks to come, I talked to the whole family and the friends around that family, and come to find that this is just what they enjoyed doing. It was in their heart to love people and to change their lives if possible. And a few weeks later, I had a big falling out with my son, and I decided that I couldn't handle it no more, and that I was going to leave my family. I was past the suicide, and I didn't think about that anymore, but I thought if I left the house, I would be out of all the commotion and everything, and I felt like I was being walked on. And as I was leaving the cigar shop, there was a man that I had met a few weeks before that. He knew my situation, and he asked me what was wrong, and I explained the situation to him, and he said, "You know, Alan, you're kind of a butthead. Have you ever stopped to look to see if maybe you're the problem?" Well, I took offense to that, and I said, "You just don't understand. So it's not me, it's everyone else." And I left. On the way home, I started thinking about the things that I had learned over the last few weeks in watching everybody around me. And I thought, maybe he's right. Maybe I need to give him a chance and look at myself. And I did. Over the next few days, I watched how people responded at home to what I said and the things I did. And I watched how I responded to what they said and what they did. And I found that I would fly off the hinges over the littlest thing. He was right. I was a butthead. Over the past year, I came to know that man quite a bit, and I've spoke with him several times about problems in my life. He's encouraged me, inspired me to be a better person, to be a more godly man. Today, that man's one of my dearest friends. That man's John Hyman. And I thank him for that day, for pointing out that I was causing a lot of my own problems. But I still had a long way to go. I started reading the Bible listening to sermons on TV, and I was inspired to go visit Carl's church at Casaview. The first time I ever went to Casaview, I was welcomed with a warm smile, open arms, open hearts, and a lot of love. That made things a lot easier on me. That first day I sat on the front row and cried through the whole service because I was still a broken man, still very lost, but knew if I stuck with it and gave it a chance, things would get even better than they were. And every day I noticed it getting a little better. The communication between me and my family was getting better. My attitude was getting better. And life in general just started getting better. After seeing them reach out to me and so many others, I wanted that, and I strived for that. And I ran into a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in several years, and I come to find that he was sick. He was suffering from Tourette syndrome, and he had it really bad. And I started sharing with him the things that I was experiencing through Christ and how it was changing my life. Even if it was only me, it was changing. I talked to him several times. We prayed together. We prayed about his mother who was sick at the time. And I asked him to join me to come to Casaview. And surprisingly, he was up and ready to go when I got there. And since that day, every time we talk about God and the neat things He's doing in our lives every day. I continued to go to church, and I noticed I wasn't the only one dealing with these problems, that almost everybody around me was dealing with the exact same problem I had, life. But they were a lot happier and they were getting through it. I watched a few people be baptized there at the church, and I knew that was my next step, that I had to show the world that I accepted Jesus Christ in my heart, and that He was healing me and He was changing my life. I talked to several people about baptism and different ways that they have done it. I asked my dad if he was baptized, and he said yes, as a child he was baptized in Louisiana in a creek. Being a good old country boy, and I love the water and spend most of my time at the lake. That's where I feel at home, that's where I feel comfortable, and that's where I wanted to be baptized. So that afternoon I met up with Carl, and John was there, and I asked Carl if I had to have you ever baptized anybody outside the church? And he said, well, yeah. Why, you want to be baptized at the lake? And I said, yeah, I do. And he looked right across the table at John and said, will you be my witness? Let's go. Well, that day it happened to be about 34 degrees, and the water level was low. We would have had to wade through mud to even get to the water. So I encouraged them to, let's wait until the lake fills back up and the water warms up, and we'll do it then. And I think at that time they thought I wasn't going to follow through with it. But it was too late then. By then, He was running through my veins, and I was getting more and more excited every day. I watched the fishing form to see the water temperature and watched the water rise over the months. The rains came and filled the lake back up. The sun came out and warmed the water. And I'd missed church for a couple weeks, and when I miss, I still listen to the sermons online because I don't want to miss the message. And after sitting at work listening to the sermon I missed the previous week, I was very excited when I got done, and I jumped online and looked at the fishing forum, and the water temperature was 72 degrees. I immediately texted Brother Carl and told him water temperature 72, and within seconds I had a reply saying, "I'm ready when you are." So we set it up for the next weekend. My family and my friends, Carl and Shelly, John and his wife, and a few other people showed. It was a great day. It was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful spot. Me and Carl walked out into the water, and I was baptized. And after I came up and I celebrated, I looked up and my friend, the one I'd been talking to, Dwayne, he was standing at the water's edge. That was the greatest day of my life. He came into the water. Not only was I saved that day, but I had the privilege of bringing a dear friend to Christ with me. And that was an overwhelming feeling of joy. Since then, I've talked to several people outside of the church, total strangers that I see hurting. I just let them know that there's a way to change your life for the better. There's things you can do that will change your life. And the first one is accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior. If you put it in His hands, He will fix it for you. Or He'll show you how to do it. A year ago, I didn't know how I was going to feed my family. Today, bankruptcy is nowhere in sight. A year ago, my home was being foreclosed on and was going to be auctioned off. Today, my mortgage loan is in modification proceedings, and it looks like we're going to save our house. A year ago, I didn't even have a car. Today I have two, and I drive a BMW that's paid for. A year ago, I was going to lose the love of my life. My beautiful wife Katie and I were looking at divorce. Today, I'm happier than I've ever been in my marriage. It's like we're falling in love all over again. It's the best feeling in the world. A year ago, I didn't want to live anymore, and I had decided to take my own life. Today, every night I go to sleep, I toss and turn because I'm so excited to see what He's got for me tomorrow. Jesus Christ has changed my life in less than a year. If you're here today and you haven't come to that place in your life where you've asked Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior, well, folks, you're wasting time, because He'll change your life. Thanks for listening to my story. God bless.